Love 'em or hate 'em, you almost have to admire their business practice. Boldly going where nobody has before, whether it's due to an overabundance of great minds coming up with great ideas, or simple foolishness not knowing where to draw the line. We've all played their games, know the characters, and are familiar with the consoles. In fact, it seems almost as if every one of the systems created by them holds a significance, whether good or bad. The NES practically saved video games in North America, something I have to preface since there are historians out there ready to mention how the Commodore 64 was keeping things afloat overseas. The SNES gave way to things like 3D graphics, though incredibly primitive, by means of Mode 7 and the Super FX chip, proving to Sega that no matter how good a marketing campaign is, it can't beat stone cold results. Now yeah, the Virtual Boy really didn't bring anything to the table other than copious amounts of headaches, and while the Nintendo 64 was arguably a bit of a blunder, seeing as utilizing cartridges handicapped its success, it showed the power of 64 bits, right down to the titles of its games. The GameCube? It was just adorable, being more of a haven for hidden gems and unforgettable experiences, and though it was trumped by both the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, is a favorite console of many. So what am I rambling about? I mean, besides the various Game & Watch handhelds, and of course the many evolutions of the Game Boy, I've pretty much gone over all of Nintendo's consoles. Except for one. Shit. I've pretty much gone over all of Nintendo's consoles. But what was the point? I honestly don't know, but please join me in flashing back to 2004. E3 that year had sucked. Hype was filling the air and nobody had anything to show off. Games like Half-Life 2, Doom 3, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas were highly anticipated, but nowhere to be found at the expo, leaving a lot of people wondering just what there was to be excited about. Enter both Sony and Nintendo, who, unbeknownst to anyone in attendance, had a few game-changing tricks up their sleeves. The PSP and the Nintendo DS. Sadly, Sony forgot theirs at home, leaving any and all fans with dry mouths thirsting for more info, but Nintendo came to play. After showing off games like Metroid Prime 2 and a working title Starfox game, which would eventually be known as Starfox Assault, Reggie Fils-Aimé unveiled what would become the highest-selling portable product of all time. Sure, the reaction was on the quieter side, and I'd be willing to bet that it didn't help that Nintendo announced, I don't know, a new Zelda game or something, but over the next few years, the DS would become synonymous with Nintendo's success. I actually remember getting mine on my 9th birthday, and being absolutely blown away by the touchscreen controls, and for some reason, New Super Mario Bros. DS, though that's probably because it was the only game I got with it. And while I've grown to almost resent the touchscreen controls and have become less involved with handheld gaming than I used to be, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I have a lot of good memories with this strange dual-screened machine. But now it's time to answer the question that I'm pretty sure most of you are thinking. Where am I going with all of this? To tell you the truth, even I don't know. Wario, Master of Disguise. Amid the countless titles starring the mustachioed anti-hero, his DS outing is easily the most obscured, right down to being called uncomfortably strange. Ouch! The last time I actually played this, I was probably still a fat little pork chop, which is right around the time that I decided to trade in all of my DS games and got like $100. It's not the point though. The point is today I'm giving Wario, Master of Thunder Thighs, another shot, and I'm gonna find out just how uncomfortably strange it really is. To tell you the truth, it's probably as uncomfortably strange as I am. So you start up the game and what the hell do you see? Well, it's none other than Wario doing his usual couch potato routine until he comes across a TV program starring the Silver Zephyr. Zephyr. Give me a second.
Legend has it that there is a portal to Zephyr.
After wanting to get in on the action and coming up with one of his, brilliant ideas, Wario constructs the single-handedly dumbest-looking teleportation device I've ever seen, also known as the Telmet, and zaps into his TV. Upon arrival, he steals the Silver Zephyr's wand, named Goodstyle, who bestows upon him the mysterious powers of cat burglary! Something that angers the Silver Zephyr, now known as Count Cannoli, so much that he just leaves. believes. The main draw of gameplay is running around large Metroid-styled levels, stealing loot and pummeling whatever enemies you come across. It's surprisingly basic. The levels might be Metroid-styled, but that's about as Metroid as they get. There's never really any moments that call for strenuous thinking, since it's all pretty much cut and dry, feeling incredibly linear despite its open exploration facade. There's all sorts of chests haphazardly located around, most housing menial treasures like the rare collectible figurine and scones of sadness. Like I said, these are mostly there just because and don't do much other than contribute to your overall score, which is tallied up at the end of each episode and represented by cash. You're also graded on how long it takes you to complete an episode, most of them having a 20 to 30 minute timer set in place. That being said, all you get for completing a level within that time frame is a money bonus during the final tally, meaning that there's no real punishment for going over time, making the entire time mechanic feel pointless. Listen, I'm not expecting the moon to come crashing into Termina because it took me 10 minutes longer to complete a level than the game wanted me to, but the entire factor of an added time bonus leaves me scratching my head. Sure, games in a series like Metroid reward you based on how quick you beat them, but there it always feels warranted. Well, what I'm really trying to say is, it would be nice if when I completed episode 3, The Sphinx Sits on a Secret, I was rewarded with a picture of Wario in a bikini. Because if Samus can pull it off, I think Wario can. Not all chests contain just pointless junk though, as you'll also find things like maps, health extenders, and underwear. God, this game really makes you think. Most important are the Guise Gems, which upon finding grant you the power of new disguises like Cosmic, Electric, and Wicked Wario. This edition is probably the coolest thing in the game, since Wario is known for his vast array of transformations, whether it be Zombie Wario or Fat Wario, which, if you think about it, is an oxymoron, but I digress. It's not as easy as just opening the chests though. Wario doesn't just strut up to him like Link and strike a pose. Instead, you have to solve puzzles to get the prize. And these chest puzzles are easily the most annoying thing here, since A, they feel incredibly shoehorned in, and B, by the end of the game leave you feeling more taken away from than rewarded. There's a few that are okay, like the image scrambling and connect the dots, but then there's ones where you have to fill in the blank spaces of an image. On paper, the idea's solid. Take a look at the complete picture and then fill in whatever's missing. Bada bing, bada boom, done. However, for each of these puzzles, you have a set amount of chances represented by these here Wario hats. If you mess up, you lose one. Simple as that. So say I'm doing this coloring one and have 2 chances. I can straight up skip an entire portion and just get dinged 1 chance without any failure. Do you see the problem? Hands down, my favorite of these challenges has to be the one where you guide falling objects to the correct receiver, because if you... Yeah. There's also this roach squashing minigame, and I can't help but feel like it's a callback to Mario Paint, but I also just realized how much these challenges are like WarioWare microgames, and will someone please explain to me why I can make poop go into a mouth in a Nintendo game? But anyway, back to the disguises, as there's a ton of them at your disposal, each with their own use, like breathing fire, being able to paint doors and platforms into existence, and even finding hidden stuff. While I like where they were going with the whole use different disguises in tandem to solve problems thing, the main issue is how you go about actually transforming into them. Almost everything in the game, save for movement and jumping, is done with the touchscreen, meaning that anytime you want to transform into a different disguise, you have to draw the correct symbol on the screen. When you have 8 different disguises, all of which have incredibly similar activation symbols, and are dealing with something as shoddy as the Nintendo DS touchscreen, problems are sure to happen. For example, there were numerous occasions where I'd try to transform into Cosmic Wario only to turn into the Dragon one instead. This wouldn't be as big of a problem if the Cosmic Wario symbol wasn't a circle and the Dragon one wasn't a less than sign. I mean, either I'm not too good with my shapes, or there's a real problem here. And let's just talk about Arty Wario for a moment, because I have a real bone to pick with this one. So, Drawing a square results in a platform, and drawing a canvas shape, which is what the game calls it, gets you a teleportation door. Seems pretty simple, but later on in the game, you gain the ability to draw health hearts into existence. And I know what you're thinking, but no, the problem here isn't that this takes away from any and all challenge the game has to offer. The real problem is that it adds to the game's difficulty. Like I said, shoddy touchscreen controls, so if you're in the heat of battle, scrambling to scribble a heart onto the screen, you need 100% precision or else... What a load of shit. I think it's funny that the biggest issue in a game like this, being that it almost relies solely on the touchscreen, is the touchscreen. Though one thing I can say in the game's favor is that it still looks pretty good, but whether that's due to the graphics being done well or just because I'm a sucker for 2D based pixel games is to be decided. I also found myself enjoying the soundtrack. There are a few catchy tunes in here, but sadly it's stuff you'll never hear along the likes of Zelda or Mario games. And you know what, I think that might be the perfect way to describe this entire thing. It's got charm, sure, there's definitely moments where you can see the brilliance in the writing, and overall the game is harmless, but when it comes down to it, it just feels like a B-grade Nintendo game. Granted, that might be due to the fact that it was developed by a company other than Nintendo. In fact, the game was made by Suzak, a company that has since died a horrible death. Rest in peace, oh my god. Alright, so at the end of each episode, you have to face off against a boss, and wouldn't you know it, they're about as easy as everything else here. It's always, look here, shoot that, poop in this guy's mouth. What is it with this game's poop fetish? And you also can't forget the Vor boss. But seriously though, this game has some minimal bosses if I've ever seen them. Like, I hear people remark all the time about how Kirby's games are simple, and from now on I'm just gonna show them this. So, you meander through the game, collect all of the wish stone pieces, which is something I remembered to mention, don't rewind the video, and come face to face with Terror Masu, the true villain of the game. Now, I'd be lying if I didn't say that this boss actually kicked my ass the first time around. On top of these randomly hittable balls and ridiculous flame walls, I didn't stand a chance. Then I just discovered that I could do this. Why am I even surprised? So, you flame this face a few times and then ta-da, it's the game's ending, which sees Wario finally getting that fortune he's always wanted. Until he doesn't anymore. Look, I'm gonna cut it real with you. This game, DS shovelware at its finest. 1 out of 10.
So, after revisiting the game more than a decade later, does Wario Master of Disguise hold up among Nintendo's best? I really can't even say if it's among the must-play Nintendo DS games. What with the much better series like Wario Land existing, or even WarioWare, you're better off playing those, honestly. Though, if you do want to delve into the more obscure, kinda creepy side of Nintendo, I'd recommend the game. You might be surprised. I mean, who knows? You might end up loving it, you might end up hating it.